Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today I'm going to be doing some early summer pruning, and I'm starting with my Giant Sequoia forest. Here is a look at the forest. I last pruned this forest about 3 weeks ago, and I just took the blue scissors and pruned all the trees to a conical shape. Now the trees are starting to grow in at the apex again, getting some long branches. So today I'm going to go in with the scissors and just prune off the tips of some of these longer branches in the apex, always trying to balance the vigor of the tree, keeping the bottom branches strong and reducing the vigor in the upper branches. If I just let these branches grow at the top, the tree will get enormous and I'll lose all these lower branches. They'll just get weak and die off. I'm going to come in with the tiny curved scissors that Barb got me to do all this detailed work. So anything growing back in towards the tree, like this branch here, I'll prune away totally, like that. And all these long tips have to be pruned back. So here, prune it right back to here. Always trying to leave some of the new growth on the branches if possible. This one, it crosses the trunk line, it crosses back, so I'm going to remove that one totally. Just keeping the branches that are going a good direction. This one's getting long and vigorous at the tip, so I'll prune it back. This one's kind of growing a bit vertical, so I'll prune the tip off. So just little detail work on the trees today. Nothing too major or drastic. Here's one shooting straight up that I can remove. Like that. And this branch, I can remove this vertical one. So here at the apex I have like a strong vertical leader, and then there's a shoot that comes off at an angle that's getting very strong also, so I need to prune it right back to this branch that's closer to the trunk line. So here I go, big cut coming up, taking that whole tip off there. Otherwise I'll get multiple leaders coming up from the tree and I'll lose that conical form and it just won't look miniature. And my goal, is to keep these trees as small as possible for as long as possible, and we'll see how it goes. Trees do have to grow a bit each year, so that I'm sure they will get larger. This branch isn't going a good direction, so I'll prune it back to a branch that is. There's a vertical one here I can prune away. Also gets more light to these lower branches, so they stay vigorous. And you've got to study the tree from all angles. So you maintain your conical form if that's what you're after. And these trees will evolve eventually, the lower branches will get removed and they'll slowly, I'll train them to take on the form of a mature giant sequoia. But for now, I'm just keeping them conical. Now right here I've got two branches, and the lower branch is better than the upper one. I believe the branch above it doesn't look very vigorous. One of these ones to the side here have to go because they're running parallel to each other and they're almost on top of each other. And there's even a third branch kind of below them. I think in this case I'm going to prune out the middle one. I think that'll maintain a better branch spacing on the tree, so I don't have like bare spots on the trunk line. Now there's some branches in here that are really weak and have died off, but I'm going to leave those. They're not hurting anything, and On these sequoias, I found, that you get new branches coming off the trunk lines, and it's possible. There's a bit of green on some of these branches. They could get a shoot coming off them. If they don't, then I'll prune them in the future, but for now I'll leave them. I'll take out the middle branch here, prune the tip here, zoom back a bit, and there's a bud that wants to grow on the inside here. Take that out. There's a vertical one here I can prune away. So this kind of detail work, it's what takes time on your trees, but it's also what makes the biggest difference to the future of your tree. That it maintains the shape you want and keeps your branches alive, hopefully. Yeah, I don't think I can do too much more on this tree. I've got it kind of sorted out. You'll notice I'm not touching these lower branches much, just kind of letting them grow. There is one at the very bottom I could just pinch the tips out. They are getting a little long and vigorous. And this one over here, which is good to see healthy branches low down on the tree. Yeah, so that tree is done, and I'll try and show you it with a background so you can see what's going on. Okay, I'll try and fit a background in here if I can. It's pretty tight. I don't know if that'll work. Sort of works. There. So you can see the tree isolated now. It's conical form. The branches look fairly balanced. There is, now that I look at it, there is quite a thick branch here that needs a bit of thinning. There's like 2 branches growing here. I think I'm going to prune back the vigorous one and take off the lower portion of it. Like that. That gets a little better of a form. And even here there's a kind of a double branch. I'll take out this one. Like that. Yeah, that's looking better. Okay, so that tree is pruned up. I'll continue pruning up the rest of the trees in the forest, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. If I didn't do this pruning, as I said, these trees would just grow enormous. You can get tremendous growth from these trees in just a single year. One thing I've noticed on these sequoias is they always reach for the light. You can see this tree, these back branches were getting shaded out, so they've kind of died off. And then the branches that were growing out the back, they're kind of wrapping around and reaching towards the front here where the light is. So I've got to be very careful to get light to all the branches, that the trees aren't too crowded and shading out each other. I found with the old needles and branches, if they're really dead, that when you kind of just brush them with your fingers, the needles fall off, and just a gentle pull on the branch and the old dead branches just pop off too. So it's a good way to tell if a branch has any life left in it. If it comes off really easily, you know it's truly dead. If it's still kind of firmly attached to the trunk, it's possible that it's still alive. I have finished pruning up the sequoia forest. So here's what I took off today. So nothing major, there's a few longer branches, but mainly just tips and small branches, a bit of dead wood that came off. So let's fly in now and have a look at the forest. All my giant sequoia trees in this forest were started from a seed, and they're now 3 years old. So they're going into their 4th growing season. And so far the techniques seem to be working quite well on them. I've got a little branch dieback, and I got the tip of one tree dieback, but generally the pruning is quite successful. I do end up pruning these like 4 or 5 times a season because they're such vigorous growers. If you don't prune them, they'll just double in size every year. So I'll keep working away at them. Eventually, you know, I'll have to separate the trees and put them in a bigger pot and try and come up with a nice landscape for them also. Right now it's just kind of establishing the trees and the shape of the trees and kind of training myself to take care of them, learning the techniques that work well and what techniques don't. But so far everything seems to be going quite well with them. So let's get out another tree and begin pruning. The next trees I'll be working on today are the ficus that are growing on my Tomb Raider temple. So you can see the shoots have grown quite long. There's lots of leaves on them, lots of vigor in the trees. So I'll prune them back, keeping them more compact. I don't want to grow these trees, you know, getting a thick trunk like my other ficus here. I want to keep these trees kind of small and miniature. So just like the sequoias, I'll be pruning them a lot over the summer to keep them compact. Just improving the branch structure and getting more branches in the planting so it looks a little more miniature. So I'll have to lift it from this spot over here, which is always a challenge because it's quite heavy. All right, here I go lifting the Prohm temple. Yeah, it's good and heavy. Here's a look at the temple. So I'm not sure, but I think this is a Bert Davii ficus, and these might be Natal Ficus out front. I'm really not sure. In the wintertime they looked like they were the same, but now, you know, this one has big leaves. It came out into leaf earlier than the other one, so I'm not really sure. So I'm going to begin the pruning, and I have 2 options. I could leave leaves on the tree and just prune the branches back, or I could defoliate them. There's enough strength in the tree that I could defoliate it. But I think I can still see the structure clearly just by moving the branches around, so I won't defoliate it. I'll just prune it all back. I am ready to begin the pruning now, so here I go, and I'm going to be using directional pruning. Pruning to leaves that are fanning outwards from the trunk of the tree, so the new branches that come in are in a good direction. So this one has a good outward facing leaf here and one down here, so I'll prune just above this leaf, taking the tip off. This one has a branch coming out the front, and there's one back there and one here. I think just the one out the front, so pruning back to there. This one, I've got a leaf down low, one going out the back, and then one to the left and one to the right. I think I'll prune it to here for now, and I can always prune it back a little tighter later on if I still think it's too long and bushy looking. This one just doesn't flow, so I'm going to remove that branch completely. It's a new shoot that grew in. And I have a lot of new branches growing in behind here that I have to decide what I'm going to do. I'll prune it off to here for now, and then I can always come in and look at the overall design of it all and then maybe do some further branch pruning. Starting conservative with the pruning and then reevaluating it after. So this is the second tree. The first tree is growing out front, and then there's one on the left and one on the right. Well, that's got these two trees kind of roughly pruned up. So now I think I'll take a look from the front and just see, what I visualized for the design of the trees. I was working away on my temple yesterday and I got a phone call. I've been searching for a long time to buy a cube, and not the cube that holds water, but a Nissan cube. It's a vehicle. It's based on the Nissan Micra, but it's like a sort of a funky looking van. And I've been obsessed with these Nissan cubes for a long time. Many years ago, I was at a car meet and there was I think it was a Scion box or one of those square looking Scion vehicles, and it had all the stereo equipment. It was booming away, and the guy said, "Oh, have a seat in it." And I sat in it and I went, for such a small vehicle, the inside looked enormous because it's all square. It was like a van inside, except it was a very compact vehicle. And that always kind of stuck in the back of my mind that it was a pretty cool thing. And so we got the Nissan Micra, and I really like the Nissan Micra. It's an economy car, but it's very sporty to drive. It's got the 5-speed manual. And so when I kind of discovered the Nissan Cube after that it's based on the Micra, except it's boxy. And I always thought that would be a cool vehicle, but I never thought that they came with a manual transmission. I always thought they were automatics, and I didn't want to drive an automatic. It's just not very sporty. So about, I don't know, maybe a year ago, I learned that they did make them with 6-speed manual transmissions, and I thought, oh, that would be the car for me. And so I've been searching for one. I put, all the feelers out on all these car websites, like Auto Guru. I've been keeping my eyes on Facebook Marketplace, and I found a few manual transmission ones. They're very rare, and they all had like 200,000, 300,000 kilometers on them. They're really high mileage ones, and they're starting to rust out, and it wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for kind of one that is more a hobby car for me, or a collector's car. And so I'd almost given up hope because they stopped making them long ago, and to find one in good shape was, they're not a car that people take care of. It's a car that people use. So I kind of given up hope a bit, and then one popped up on Facebook Marketplace. It was sort of more of a tuner car. It had been lowered, and it had 17-inch wheels, and it was quite in good shape, and it had 99,000 kilometers on it. So I messaged the person, and we kind of went back and forth a bit, and I arranged a time to go see it, and I didn't get his address in time, and then finally he called me and said, "Yeah, come down, if you can come down and have a look at it." So I was pruning up my forest here, and I jumped in the car, and it was like at least a 2-hour drive to go visit this vehicle. So I went and saw it. Sorry, my eyes are running here. I went and saw it, and I really liked it. It had low kilometers. It was kept in really good shape. It hadn't been winter driven for a long time. And I thought, well, that's the vehicle for me. So I bought it. I put down a down payment on it, and I'm going to pick it up soon. And that's the vehicle. So it's kind of a new vehicle for the bonsai zone. I can fit all my trees in the back of it and go to shows and that. It gets really good fuel economy. It's sporty to drive, and it's kind of funky looking. It's not a vehicle that many people would like. It's sort of, a lot of people would call it butt ugly, but I like it. It's, like I said, it's a weird obsession of mine. So I'll show you a few photos of the vehicle and some video. And so now, I don't know when I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to Isabella's on Tuesday to pick up the pots that have been fired in the kiln. And so maybe either tomorrow or later in the week, I'll be picking up the Nissan Cube, which will be very exciting. So yeah, so that's why it is the next day in pruning up my temple. So that's what it looks like, a very strange looking vehicle that I think only a few people could like it because it's so bizarre looking. I'm looking at the temple now from the distance, and this planting has to be a balance between the trees and the temple. I don't want either overpowering each other, so I don't want to show too much temple, and I don't want to show too much tree. I want kind of a balance so you can kind of step in and look at it and explore the planting. So I think it's fairly balanced right now. I think there's a good balance between the foliage on the tree and the temple itself. I do have some crossing branches kind of in front of the temple, and I've got to decide about those. What I want to show, if I want it to kind of bring the canopy out more and have the temple kind of underneath. Yeah, it's a difficult thing, and there's various ways you could display this temple. At present, the real life to Prohm temple, the trees are pruned and upkept so they don't become too large and become dangerous for tourists. So they kind of prune off all the dangerous branches on them. Or, you know, you could have this planting before it was kind of rediscovered, that it's very overgrown and jungle-like, and you can sort of see the temple less, that you have to, really search for it. And like I said, I think somewhere in between is a good balance. I also don't want these trees getting too large, so I've got to keep them fairly pruned. So the question is, do I do some more pruning on it, or do I just leave it and let it recover? That is a good question. Another thing I want to do is, on the temple itself, I built up moss up the side of the temple for the roots to grow into the moss and reach the ground level. I don't want the temple completely hidden with moss. I just want, like right now, there's an entrance on this side, on the right side, and one on the left, and it's just kind of covered with moss. So I think I want to remove some of that moss, exposing the building a little more, so it's just roots and temple at that stage, not moss coming up from the landscape, kind of swallowing up the temple. I think that's sort of what I was saying, that lost temple look, where it's the temple blends in more with the jungle. But I think I want to go somewhere in between. So I'm going to remove some of that moss from the entranceways. So here you can see the front entrance quite clearly, but there's another one over here that's hidden with moss and roots. So I'm going to get out the tweezers and start taking moss away, exposing a little bit more of the building. So I'm still working away at removing moss, exposing the temple a bit, and spraying it with the sprayer to wash the soil away. And you can see a little more of this entranceway now. And I can't be worried, or too worried, about roots. I mean, all these roots grew over the winter, last year and this year. And when winter comes again, I'll get, more roots growing. So I imagine I'll be at the point where I'm actually thinning roots and cutting off thicker ones and trying to maintain a realistic looking root base on these trees. I think it'll get out of hand quite quickly. See, like here's a crossing root that doesn't look good. It crosses, then it comes straight down into the soil. So I could prune that away. And I will. If that thickens up, it'll just continue to look worse and worse. It looks okay now, but you have to think about the future. You don't have to, but I try to. Yeah, so there's some nice roots growing down here, but
But as I said, you gotta pick and choose your roots, keeping the best ones and pruning away the ones that aren't so good, and eventually your roots will improve all these flowing roots. The main thing is to get the roots to look like they're flowing down the temple like, you know, melted wax from a candle, because that's how it looks in real life, and that's the effect I'm going after. Not all these roots that are going 90 degrees to the planting and that, they're just not good roots. So cut those away. Yeah, it's kind of hard being selective with the roots, but it's just something you have to do, otherwise it just won't look miniature and realistic. So here's another sprite I'm exposing here. There's a root growing straight up here. I don't know if I can reposition it maybe. I think I can. More spraying. Yeah, so I've exposed a lot here. It's quite different looking. There's another root that's crossing up here that I gotta prune away. I have to. I don't know where it comes from, in here somewhere. And it doesn't flow. It's all about the flow. Yeah, that's looking quite good. I like that. You can see more of the temple now from the front view. You can see more of the roots, which are nice. And they're in the ground and they're flowing. You can see the sprites on the temple. Yeah, I think that's looking good. This video was going to be kind of some quick summer pruning on a lot of trees, and I ended up working on 2 trees so far. Well, a forest and the temple. And I have lots more work to go on it, so I'm going to continue this series in another video. So that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.